It was one of those quiet mornings at Baker Street when Holmes seemed half asleep, and yet somehow more alert than anyone else in London. I had dropped by to see him, as I often did, and found him lounging in his chair with his long legs stretched toward the fire. His eyes were closed, but I knew better than to think he wasn't paying attention to everything around him. Without opening his eyes, he suddenly said, "You are amazed, Watson, that I know you've been writing recently." I blinked in surprise. He was right, of course. I had been finishing a medical article. Holmes smiled at my expression. "It is simplicity itself," he murmured. Before I could ask him how he knew, Mrs. Hudson opened the door and announced a visitor. A young woman stepped in, pale, nervous and neatly dressed. Her gloved hands twisted together as she looked around the room. Holmes sat up at once. "Pray, take a seat," he said gently. "I observe that you have come to us for help." Her name was Miss Mary Sutherland. She explained that she lived with her mother and stepfather, Mr. Windybank, a quiet man who worked for a wine importer. Miss Sutherland herself received money from a small inheritance and worked as a typewriter to help the household. Holmes nodded as she spoke, already noticing details. When she paused, he observed softly, "Your boots are new, but the laces are old. Interesting." Miss Sutherland blushed but continued. She had met a shy and gentle man named Hosmer Angel, who had walked her home from a charity ball. They soon grew fond of each other, but he insisted on secrecy. He always wore tinted glasses, spoke softly, and would only see her when her stepfather was away. Holmes leaned forward, listening closely. Hosmer Angel proposed to her in writing. His letters were polite and earnest, sealed neatly but written in a strangely careful way. Miss Sutherland accepted him. They arranged a quiet wedding on the very day her stepfather left again for business. But at the church door, Hosmer Angel vanished. "He went ahead in the cab," she said, her voice trembling. "When I arrived, he was gone. No one had seen him get out, and I have not heard from him since." Holmes asked to see the letters and envelope. She handed them over, and he studied them without a word. Then he looked at Miss Sutherland with great kindness. "I shall look into the matter," he said. "I promise you that." She left soon after, still worried, still hopeful. The moment the door closed behind her, Holmes burst into action. He handed me the letters. "Notice the typewriting?" he said. "All written on the same machine, and observe, no signature, only his name typed. Curious, is it not?" "But Holmes," I asked, "what happened to the man?" Holmes only smiled, steepling his fingers. "We shall soon know." Later that afternoon, Holmes wrote a short note to Miss Sutherland's stepfather, asking him to come to Baker Street on an urgent matter. Mr. Windybank arrived looking neat, polite, and just a little too calm. His face was bland, and he smiled in a way that suggested he liked to appear harmless. Holmes greeted him sharply. "This is a wicked trick, sir." Mr. Windybank blinked nervously. I don't understand." Holmes rose from his chair, eyes blazing. "Oh, I think you do. I believe you are also known as Hosmer Angel." The man's face went pale. Holmes went on, his voice like a cold blade. "Hosmer Angel," he explained, "was nothing but a disguise. Tinted glasses to hide his eyes, a soft whisper to hide his voice, and a typed signature so no handwriting could be recognized. Every time Miss Sutherland thought she was meeting her suitor, her stepfather conveniently happened to be away on business. Letters were typed on the same machine used in the house. The whole plan was simple. If Miss Sutherland married, Her inheritance money would go to her and not to the household, meaning Mr. Windibank would lose her income. "So you invented Mr. Hosmer Angel," Holmes said, "and then made him disappear at the church so she would remain faithful to him and never marry anyone else." Windibank stammered, "But it was only a joke." Holmes's hand came down on the table. "A joke? To trap a young woman to steal her happiness? Sir, that is a cruel and selfish scheme." Windibank shrank back. "No crime was committed," he muttered weakly. Holmes stared him down. "There are crimes the law cannot reach," he said, "but there are none that the man of conscience should forgive." Flustered and frightened, Windibank hurried out of the room. I looked at Holmes. "Will you tell Miss Sutherland?" Holmes shook his head sadly. "No, she would not believe it. She is loyal, even to a lie. Better to let her think Hosmer Angel simply abandoned her. The truth would break her heart." He leaned back in his chair, eyes half closed again. "But someday," he murmured, "she may thank me for showing her that a shadow is not always a man."